Hey there, it's Mike Cooch, and I get asked by entrepreneurs all the time for my favorite books and my favorite resources that I've learned from over the years to help me build and manage businesses. And I'm an absolute voracious reader of books. I have been ever since I discovered my passion for entrepreneurship. And I have a handful of books that I refer to over and over and over again that have been really, really critical to me. In this video in particular, I want to cover the books that I think are best for somebody that's in what we call the grinder mode. So you've already started your business. You're not what we call a gazelle, right? You're not growing like crazy. You're not flying off the charts with growth. You're kind of in the thick of it, right? You're making progress, but you're grinding away. You're running into all of those challenges of setting up like some initial processes and systems because you're hiring people and you hire people and you expect that they were going to do one thing and they do something totally different. Like all those just practical realities of starting to run a business that, is starting to get a little bit of momentum. So these are the books that I think are going to be most impactful for you, okay? The first one is the EMyth. This is actually the EMyth Revisited. So it's a second or third version of the EMyth. I think whichever version of EMyth you read, it's a classic. It's a fantastic book. It's a reminder that your business is a business of systems, or should be a business of systems, and that it shouldn't be something that sucks the life out of you and is completely dependent on you. If it is, then you're not setting up and operating systems properly. So that's the EMyth, a fantastic book. The next one is The Lean Startup. This is a famous book in Silicon Valley circles in particular. How today's entrepreneurs use continuous innovation to create radically successful businesses. It is, the lean process of manufacturing and software development and stuff like that applied to how to run your business. And there's a number of books in here that I have that are similar kind of in their nature and philosophies, which is this idea of, hey, you've got to put something out there, get data, learn from it, and then come back and change it, then put it back out there, get data, learn from it, come back and change it. So this is continuous cycle of innovation and just learning from the things that you put out into the marketplace and the feedback that you get from customers. It's a really, really, really good book. The Great Game of Business. Gosh, I don't know. This one of the most single most impactful books on my career for sure. This is from Jack Stack. This is a story about open book management. So it's a story about Jack Stack took over this manufacturing plant that was failing, and he had to get all of his employees involved in the business, sharing numbers, communicating, and stuff like that in ways that people just were not comfortable with at the time. Okay, open book management is definitely more of an adopted philosophy now. It wasn't that way, and especially not in manufacturing plants. Manufacturing plants, it was very much you show up with your time card, you do exactly what you're supposed to do, you punch out and you go home, right? There's no questions asked, and we're not talking about, your metrics and, how you can improve your manufacturing line. It's just you came in and did your job. This really turned that on its head, and it's an amazing story and an amazing set of tools that he developed to run a business that I've just learned a ton from. So highly recommend that one. Scaling Up, this is Mastering the Rockefeller Habits 2.0. So this is from Vern Harnish. Mastering the Rockefeller Habits was just a fantastic book. Again, one of the most influential books for me. And this is his 2.0 version. And I think it's just a fantastic book. It has evolved from the first book, and it's got these very practical tools built into it to help you manage in what he says are the 4 key areas: people, strategy, execution, and cash. A great resource. Next one is actually from his ex-business partner, Patrick Thean. It's called Rhythm. Relatively similar in nature in that they both give you kind of these areas to manage and these tools to manage them. But Patrick's book is a little bit more, again, about the rhythms of running a business. So there are certain things that you need to get into a rhythm of doing at your business very consistently. He gives you very specific recommendations on what that rhythm should look like. So how often are you meeting? Who are you meeting with? What's on that agenda? How often are you talking about cash? How often are you resetting your goals? How often are you revisiting your strategy? Those things need to get done in a very rhythmic way over time to bring some structure to the process of managing a growing business. If you don't have that structure, then things can just fly all over the place. The next one is The Ultimate Question. Okay, The Ultimate Question, this is a book about what's called a Net Promoter Score. And it's just a super simple question that you ask customers to get feedback to help you determine in a very objective way, are you getting better or not? Are your customers happy with you or not? And it's been statistically determined to be very, very tied to growth. So if you get a score of, a certain amount on your Net Promoter Score, then your business is statistically very, very likely to grow. And if you get a score of less than, then your business is very likely to stall or even shrink. And it's just a super helpful tool. Theoretically, we should all be doing surveys and asking our customers for all kinds of feedback and all that type of stuff. The problem is those surveys are designed in a way that oftentimes what you see is no two surveys are the same. They're hard to compare. They don't give you data that you can see progress over time. So just a nice, simple question that you can use in your business to make sure you're getting good feedback and using that data to help you improve your business to make sure that you're actually moving forward. Hacking Growth. Hacking Growth is from a gentleman named Sean Ellis. Sean Ellis is, this just kind of Silicon Valley legend at this point, because he has been the guy who's been responsible for creating the growth mechanisms that really allowed companies like Dropbox to take off and grow. And this is his process on how he does that, how he finds the growth mechanisms, the growth opportunities in a business and capitalizes on them. Absolutely, I think, fantastic book. And great reading for any entrepreneur. Now, at some point or another, you have to start dealing with the financial realities of the business. This book, although it looks silly, is the single best book I've ever found on how to understand financials and financial reports. Okay, how to understand the key financial statements, the income statement, balance sheet, cash flow statement, how they all operate together, and ultimately, if you're going to be in business, you got to know the language of business, and this is the language of business. And like I said, even though it looks, kind of like a silly book, I was thrilled. I went to Babson for my MBA. I was absolutely thrilled when my finance professor, day one, pulls out this book and says, "You got to go get this. It's the best book that's ever been written on how to understand finances." And I was like, "Oh, thank goodness," because this is what I had secretly been using for years before my MBA program. This next one. Simple Numbers, Straight Talk, Big Profits from Greg Crabtree. This is, you put these two things together, it's all you need to understand the financials of your business and how to manage them. This is a fantastic set of tools to help you really understand your numbers and manage them very practically at your business. So I think that's an absolute must-have for every entrepreneur. And then finally, this one kind of cracks me up that I put it in here, but gosh, when I look at it, I've underlined and dog-eared this thing so much. But the No BS Ruthless Management of People and Profits from Dan Kennedy. Okay, Dan Kennedy has written a lot of books. I think I've read every single one of his books. This one is by far, I think, the best in terms of how to actually run a business. Almost everything else he writes is about sales and marketing. And it's funny because all of his sales and marketing stuff is good. But to me, this is the one that really earned all the money that I spent with him. And it's just very practical tips and tools and advice on how to manage people in particular in a way that's not all the theoretical fluff that you find in some of the other books. There's all kinds of theories out there about how you're supposed to, run HR and top grading and all that type of stuff. And all of those things are important. I get a lot of value out of those things. But at some point or another, when you're somebody who's just hustling like crazy and you're stretched super thin, one of the painful things that I've learned is that when you're at that point, you don't have the luxury of being, too patient and training people and nurturing people and all that type of stuff. Like, you've got to find somebody who can get the job done today, and you've got to have processes and systems to make sure, hey, here's exactly what I expect of you, and here are exactly, my boundaries that if you go outside of, then you're done, and I've got to find somebody else. He does a great job of articulating that kind of stuff in this book. So that's it. So No BS, Ruthless Management of People and Profits, Simple Numbers, Straight Talk, Big Profits by Crabtree, How to Read a Financial Report, Hacking Growth, The Ultimate Question, Rhythm, Scaling Up by Vern Harnish, it's Rockefeller Habits 2.0, The Great Game of Business by Jack Stack, The Lean Startup, and last but not least, EMyth or EMyth Revisited. All right, if you are a grinder right now, you've got that business, you're trying to figure it out, you're hustling every single day, you're running into the challenges and the complexity and the lack of resources and all that type of stuff that gets to every entrepreneur when they've gotten past that initial startup stage, they're getting momentum, but now the hard work has really started. These are excellent resources for you. I recommend that you go out and get them today, read them, work them, apply them, and keep them on your bookshelf because you'll be referring back to them a lot.